So there we go. Good morning, everyone out there, wherever you are. We're streaming on 8 platforms and also audio only will be uploaded as well for audio podcasts for those drives. I hope you're having a fabulous Friday this morning. I am Kat Trulinos with Tadaba Cat, Next Level Staging and Design, where we share wisdom and nuggets of magic from all of our amazing, talented guests. And today we have a very special guest, JaVon Martin. And if you're in real estate, thinking of being in real estate, or just want to hear a feel-good story, rags to riches, this gentleman went from homeless to crushing it in real estate. And you want to stay tuned to hear the story, along with some current and pressing questions that your sellers or buyers may have that he's going to address today. So without further ado, welcome, JaVon.
Hey there, everyone.
I love your smile. Thank you so much for taking time. JaVon runs a team. He's with EXP, and hey out there to all of you excellent EXP agents. I think he's streaming with them as well. But JaVon, thank you again for taking time out of your busy real estate world and business and joining me this morning. You know, you had sent me some questions, and we're going to address some questions on the real estate side, you know, current to today's market, et cetera, that a lot of folks have out there, whether they're sellers, buyers, or realtors, or soon to be realtors. But what really struck me is, and I wasn't sure you were doing tongue in cheek, was that you were broke and homeless before you got in real estate. So tell us about that, because, you know, life is full of struggles, and wow, tell us about your struggle and how you pulled yourself out of being in a very low place and got into real estate and crushing it in real estate.
Yep. I mean, I ask, so every agent and every client that I meet, just kind of, just to start the conversation, I always ask, hey, what were you doing 7 years ago? And, you know, family, oh, we just bought this house or XYZ. And then I always turn around and say, well, 7 years ago, I had made the random decision to move to the DC area. And from some decisions I put myself in, I ended up, you know, homeless. I was sleeping under bridges, or I should say houseless, because I could have always gone back to Kansas, where I'm originally from, and gone back home. But, you know, I was sleeping on bridges. I was couch surfing, bouncing from couches, friends that I knew, previous coworkers or colleagues that I worked with. And I don't really, I mean, I do know my now wife told me to get up. She had a girlfriend at the time and a couple of my friends, and, you know, support. I always had good support. And that's what I attribute, you know, hey, the past 7 years, I've had good support to help guide me and kind of help me grow to where I'm at, whether it's friends, family, coaches, other real estate agents. But yeah, no, literally 7 years ago,
So take us back 7 years, and I kind of, I mean, I have slept behind a building, but I was a teenager. I was a runaway teenager. We've all had, you know, our desolate times, our darkest times. Tell me about, was there like a light bulb or something, you know, that you went, okay, how did I get here? And what's my next? You know, because life is a series of decisions, right? I did a post about it. Design is a series of choices. I can help you make better choices. Life is a series of decisions, right? And our first thought can always be changed into a new thought, because, you know, thoughts really are the impetus of what drives our life into action. But tell me about, you know, was there a light bulb that went on where you went, enough already, you know, or was it really, you know, was it a person? Was it your own introspection? do you remember that moment or time where you just went, okay, this is enough?
Yeah, actually, I can visually. I was working at a bar, and my family, friends, like they always supported me. Hey, JaVon, this is just it's a mental break, or it's a, like you said, it's just a period.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I call it my pity me period because I thought the whole world was against me. And I was at the bar, and Brittany, my now wife, then well, we hadn't even started dating, and a gentleman who I'd worked with for a period of time, David Waters, shout out David. Um, they just kind of like planted, I don't know, those seeds of support. And I
Mm-hmm.
just remember I was sitting there, I was pouring again, and I was like, this is not where I want to be. This is not what I want to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
um, Working only enough to make food, and barely enough to make rent, or put a roof over the head.
Mm-hmm.
And it literally was kind of like what you said. It was a light bulb. It's like, okay, well, let's figure out something else to do. And I was lucky, or is fortuitous enough to be in a position where David, he was just like, well, go get a job as a car salesman. Pohanka Acura, shout out to Pohanka Acura. They took me when I didn't have a license. I don't know if they didn't know didn't have a license or not.
Do you
And
have to have a license to sell a car?
driver's license.
Oh, oopsie.
Yeah. Lenny Gonzalez, he's actually down here in Tomball, Honda of Tomball.
Wow. Well, you know what,
Um,
John, I call shout out to those guys.
yeah.
I hope their bosses don't, go, what?
Oh, no. They all know it. And like they gave me an opportunity that paved or started the way for me to be where I am right now.
And you know what? That's a God thing. I'm going to tell you that's a God thing. And it starts with, you talked about, some folks that planted the seed. Sometimes we don't realize how important words of encouragement, lifting friends
Mhm.
and family up is, and how it can start a trajectory, an uphill trajectory to kind of put the fire under us. So you had the support and verbal support that planted the seeds, and then that's a God thing, dude. That you got no driver's license.
Well, I did get it really quick, but
Sure.
I wasn't thinking. I was thinking I'd be out back washing cars, and they're like,
Right.
"No, we're
Sure.
going to give you an opportunity."
But you made it happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In our short dealings together, because JaVon and I just met a couple weeks ago, a transaction for some supplies,
Mhm.
real estate supplies. And uh, I want to tell you, JaVon, I was impressed with my interaction with you. You did what you said you're going to do. You showed up when you said you were going to show up. You transferred the paperwork for the Supras, which many realtors have never done that I've told. So I'm already impressed because, there's a saying often that we do everything how we do one thing.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
yeah, and I see that in you. I see that in other people. They say when someone shows you who they are, believe them, good or bad, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Now people have, you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. Things happen. I try to encourage that and share that with my husband. Hey, give them the benefit of the doubt. Something might have come up, this and that. But yeah, I think that's integrity. So I see you as a man of integrity, JaVon. And those dark things that happen to us in our life, you would not change it for
I
anything.
wouldn't. No, not. I wouldn't even. I wouldn't go back and change a thing because I wouldn't have the family. I wouldn't know the people that I do right now. Uh, and
I
who
know
knows?
it makes me get goosebumps because you wouldn't have met your wife,
Yeah.
everything, everything is divine right order. When we look back at it in retrospect, sometimes we don't know because I think Creator God, whoever you call it, kind of keeps like this. Like I'm only going to show you so much. Stay
Yep.
faithful, stay true, make good choices, follow me, trust, and I will reveal to you in due time.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
So how did you go from selling cars, and how did you do in that? I mean, that's a tough gig.
I loved it. The first dealership we were at in Virginia, I absolutely loved working with the people who I worked with, because the goal, like, and you can see the pull through it to real estate. The goal is, how do we help people,
Mm-hmm.
or how can we make this happen? And I absolutely loved working at the dealership I was at. Then my wife, she got her master's. She moved down right before Harvey, and I soon followed after. But she got her master's of education down here in Houston. And I was just like, well, we're just going to go sell cars down in Texas. And it's one of those divine intervention things where I one day I got a call and a text with 5 positive readings that, hey, we're pregnant, we need to figure, or excuse me, my wife's pregnant, not me, but we've got little man Leon coming along the way.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, I was working almost sun up to sundown 6 days a week. And for me, it was, how can I gain back some of my time, but still be able to provide? And another one of those seeds that was planted before we came down here, Brittany, my wife's dad, or my father-in-law, he had said I should get into real estate as a part-time gig. And then one day I just woke up. There's a whole big story behind it, but I just decided that the car industry wasn't for me. And, I had that seed in the back of my head, like, check out real estate.
Yeah.
So, I knocked out the classes quick, and I didn't know anything. I want to be honest. I didn't know anything about real estate.
You're a people person, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that's why you did so well in at the dealership. Dealership is retail, and retail, it helped you. It was the next step, and it's really good money too. But it's not a life for a family. And my husband worked. He managed a piano store amongst other things. And it's holidays, nights, weekends, all of that. It's not the job for a family. And I met Leon. Oh my gosh, he's like a cutie patootie. He's just so outgoing and friendly and such a great spirit. So you and Brittany are doing a great job.
Thank you.
A little sweetie pie. But so real estate, real estate can be all encompassing. Back in Southern California, when I first got my license, when you first start and you're hungry, it's like you can, if you don't have those boundaries, you can, eat dinner and drop the fork and go show a home. I would never encourage that for anyone today. You've got to have your boundaries, because unfortunately in the real estate business, for some ungodly reason, sellers and buyers think they can call you at all times of the night. You have to just let them know, these are my hours, and unless there's an emergency or heavy negotiations or this and that, but you've got to have boundaries. If not, you'll have a worse schedule than you had at the dealership. So let's just touch. I know we didn't have this in notes, but let's just touch on that a little bit, because I think folks can relate to it no matter what business they have. But excuse me, particularly if you're self-employed, whether it's real estate or other business, juggling family. Do you have any tools that you use to help keep those boundaries clear?
Yeah. Actually, the easiest. So it's kind of funny, because I was just talking with the agents on the team about this. That I remember the first team I was on at KW, the Marconi team. Sandra Marconi is like, you need to have a voicemail. And I was like, well, my voicemail says leave a message. And he's like, no, your voicemail needs to set your boundaries and your expectations. So when the people who are calling you don't know, like, why is JaVon not picking up at 7:30, they understand that I'll reach out to them the next day.
Yes.
It's the easiest. It's one of the smallest tools. It's one of the most simple, easy tools.
It really is. And you know what? It's funny, because I paid a lot of money for a course back in California, because, I'm starting later in life, third career or whatever. And it was, hi, this is Kat Trulinas. if I'm either with a client or showing, I'll be returning my calls at this time to that time. I don't know if you have a script similar to that. For me, because I came from outside business to business outside sales, and not picking up your phone was,
Yeah.
you miss out on business, especially when you're commission only.
Mhm.
So I kind of cringed with that because I know there were some people. Now I have a different perspective today, but there were some people who were like, "Oh, great, if she can't take care of my call right now," and they're going on to call the next agent. So that really made me cringe back then. Today, fast forward 20 some years later, it's like, no, that wasn't my best
It's not who you
client.
need to be working with.
That's not who I want to match up with. Again, back to the finite time. I only have so much time to deal with
Mhm.
so many people. I want the people who best resonate with me and who are not going to drain me, and want the most for the least, right?
Yeah.
So that's going
Mhm.
to segue us right into your last note. Let's talk about, and then we'll answer some questions in terms of sellers and buyers that you shared with me, JaVon. But you mentioned that a lot of sellers, excuse me, want you to reduce your commissions. Okay, your buyers' commissions. So how do you deal with that? Based on what we talked about. Not taking, working for, as a
Yeah.
discount broker.
Really, and this goes back to car sales almost, is you listen to the client and what they want. A majority of the time, they want to make, they make the most money, or they want to be moved in a certain amount of period of time. And so what my team and I have done is we've put together a variable commission kind of like menu. Uh, and once you listen to a client, it literally is just, okay, so you would qualify, or you would want to select the platinum, or you'd want to select preferred, like XYZ, right? And majority of the time, well, I want the next one best. Hey, like we were saying earlier, kind of like the Pinto versus Mercedes. I don't want Pinto services. I want Mercedes services. And I've got this came from the car industry, and it's really bad, but I've got this saying where I say, well, sometimes you have to pay to play. And
Absolutely.
and,
You
and
you get what
I
you
understand
pay
that.
for.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just don't, I don't come out saying you got to pay to play. It's like, well,
No.
these services, like it's obviously our goal as a realtor to sell your house. These additional services that you're looking for, and I'll break them down. This is the cost. And a majority of the time, oh wow, you're not really
And I would
making.
encourage you to change cost to investment. This is the investment,
Yes.
right?
That's it's a
So
much better word. Yeah.
investment. So when I walk in to do an occupied, someone living in the home consultation, I start off with saying, well, I understand that you're building a home, right? Okay, and you need to be, they're going to complete it, blah, blah, blah. So you want to get into your home as quick as possible. And
Mhm.
I'm sure you do want to sell your home for as much as possible,
Yeah.
right? I call it getting the head nodding.
Getting them to
I
sing.
want to sell. I want a lot of money. Great. Wonderful. Because I want that. And so does your realtor. So everything I'm going to say to you is going to stack the odds in your favor. Now it's up to you to do as little or as much as you want, have time for, or can afford. But it's my job to tell you, in my experience as a master staging professional, what you need to do to market your home, because staging is marketing. Does that sound good? Give the head shaking.
The rhythm. Yep.
Right? And I love that on the variable. You and I talked pre-call about that. That people don't want. Well, here I can give you the Pinto marketing for
Hmm.
that. Would you like the Pinto marketing? No one's going to say yes.
Yeah.
To that, right?
Hmm.
So typically they're going to take the middle selection. So just make that profitable enough for you. And then there's some, I call them ego buyers or sellers, and they're just going to like, oh no, and again, back to, it could be a flip, it could be a multi-million-dollar property. They're, as I mentioned to you with this particular client, they're not going to want you to skip any of your most valuable marketing
Yep.
strategies, because they have one thing in mind, and that is to sell for as much as possible in as quick amount of time as possible. So what have you found in providing the variable rate? What do most people pick? The middle, I would think.
So actually, a lot of clients and it's funny. So there are the ego clients, but a lot of clients trust because we've educated them. Or I don't know if educate's the correct word, but we've set the groundwork. Like, hey, this is what to expect. This is what we're going to do. And so this is just on the list side. A majority of our clients are going above 3% because they understand from the education and they trust that we'll deliver.
That's wonderful. I love that you do that. You know, as being in the real estate world as a staging professional, you know, sometimes folks have sticker shock on what it costs to make a home look like a model home, at least in the main areas, to bring in, you know, furniture, lighting, decor, rugs, art, etc. Story, and I've told this in the past, but I had a realtor here in the Woodlands. She was their 5th realtor.
Wow.
None of the 4 realtors had staged the home. Now, the home was at the time occupied. It had some very, you know, kind of lived in furnishings, dated, bulky furnishings, which really didn't showcase this beautiful Woodlands home very well. So she knew she had to do something different. So she recommended staging. Of course, they had sticker shock, but she stood, you know, firm because she knew if she just does the same thing, we know what happens when you keep doing the same thing over and over, you know, the result. It's
insanity.
Insanity, right? You got it. Excuse me. So she was so brilliant. She said, look, I am so convinced, and really the National Association of Realtors has statistics that support staging and the results, you know, 5 to 17% increase in sales price if you stage it. She was so convinced. She said, look, I'm so convinced that this is going to be successful. Let's raise the price. I'm going to raise the price by I think it was $3,500 at that time. I'm going to raise the price by that much. So they said, okay, you know, that meant they didn't have to fork out any money, realtor or seller. And of course, the good news, she sold it in 10 days. 5th realtor. 5th realtor, right? So that's why I'm so passionate about what I do. And that, you know, you talked about a little bit in your notes, you know, when people say, why isn't my home selling? You know, there's that DOM, days on market. And you've got to, you know, you're chasing against that because realtors and excuse me, buyers are going to look at that. And the longer it's on the market, they're going to start thinking, what's wrong? What's wrong with the house? Right?
Yeah, no.
So that's critical, you know, when that clock starts ticking. I know, again, National Association of Realtors published, excuse me, some stats on if you have, if your house is on the market 30 days and you have 10 showings, you should have an offer. If you don't, something's wrong. It's either priced too high or it's not staged or a combination of both. You know, that is a sweet spot, combination of both. And that's where you come in as a professional to come up with the best price based on the current market, what's selling, how fast it's selling, what are the features, does it have a pool, no pool, is there anything, you know, wrong with the property? What would you say is the most difficult listing that you've had to sell?
A most difficult listing that I've had to sell. I've had good foreclosures, but I'd probably say the most difficult listing that we've had to sell was a pre-foreclosure, is kind of a Zillow word, but a short sale foreclosure. Um,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, that gets pretty complicated, doesn't it?
the emotions is
Mm,
what
uh,
was about it. Um, I mean, luckily we were able to get it done. But you don't have a whole lot of wiggle. So going back to the variable commissions scale, like we have some wiggle room. We'll pull, one service over because it makes sense and it's something that we'll do to keep the days on market low. Um,
yeah.
when you don't have that much wiggle room, it makes it makes it super difficult. And
So,
then
so for folks, not to interrupt you, but I think there might be some folks who don't know what a short sale is. If you could just kind of
oh
summarize what is a short sale?
so a short sale is so we all understand with foreclosures, a short sale is where the mortgage company or the bank has agreed to take a loss on
Mm,
the sale of the house. So they're selling it for less than what is owed on the house. Um, and when it comes to us like professionals, I don't know if you've had to stage a short sale or foreclosure. Um, Typically we also as professionals are either going to take a reduction or not going to be able to provide as many services as we can or would be able to because we want to make sure that we fit within whatever the parameters for the
parameters, right. And I would say, yeah, we've not done a short sale. I'm sure there's no budget, not much of a budget for
yeah
professional staging there. They're already taking a loss. And like you said, the emotions on that, it's got to be, really, really difficult. Um, Another point you made up on the question, why isn't my home selling? Of course, my answer is always because you need it staged. Or never to be so humble opinion on that. But you mentioned that buyers are being more selective with the house they purchase.
hmm
The house is in a competition. Again, that's why you need to sell. And then you mentioned that more repairs are being requested.
yep
Now, I'm going to make a little tagline on that, and then I want to hear what you have to say. First impressions, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And this is why it's so critical for the outdoors to look good, the front porch to look good, because people are judging and critiquing and making assessments while you're unlocking the Supra on how well is this home taken care of. And well, wow, if this is not taken care of, what else is not taken care of? And they're going to start looking for flaws and repair requests and things like that. We have a saying, buyers justify price with emotion. We feel that our staging creates that emotion. Um, and that's why people are willing to pay more because they fall in love with the home. We make a decision, on emotion, along with that logical side.
yep
That's where the
hmm
price comes from, right? So why do you think, what's your take, JaVon, on why people are more selective and more repairs are being requested?
so I mean, let's go back 2 years ago where bidding wars, overpriced or not overpriced, but offers were coming in, multiple offers were coming in.
Driving the
Everyone
prices, inflating the prices. Yeah, I heard from
Mhm.
some realtors, wow,
Yep.
like in the heights, it would, the bidding war would go like 100,000 over asking. I mean, crazy.
Oh yeah, no, it it was wild in every aspect. um, but it's just tying in with what you said. When you are short pressed to think about the offer, or you're short pressed to think about what could be wrong, or you don't have that time, like that's where we were 2 years ago, or during the COVID period. Now that rates are a little bit higher, and buyers are having to bring more to the table, like just closing costs. They're thinking more about that investment, and they have time to think about that investment, because I mean there are a couple markets that still pretty quick, multiple offers, but a majority of the HARMLS days on market, you've got time to think.
Mm,
And it's once again going back, it's funny, like with staging, if you have like a perfectly staged house, you're not thinking about, what could be wrong. You're thinking about, oh, this is how I could live in the house.
Exactly. You're feeling yourself and seeing
Yeah, the
yourself. And this
emotions.
is
Yeah.
why we do so many investors too. They got on
Yeah.
the bandwagon because no home is perfect. I've said this many times. Although I think all trees are perfect. My builder, when I worked in new home sales, you say, yeah, no home is perfect. Well, they're not. That's why we pride ourselves in what we call corrective staging,
Mhm.
because every floor plan has its kind of kinks and quirks and so forth. So we define how they're going to live in the space and show them, because statistics tell us 85% of the people out there, they're challenged with seeing how will it go? Where do I put my furniture? But for investors, they may have had who knows how many trades out there, and there's going to be things that ordered that doesn't close right, or this and that,
Mhm.
imperfections that are exemplified when it's vacant. But again, stage it, and they're not looking at those flaws because they're already seeing and engaging themselves living in the space. And,
Yep.
this is sanctuary, our homes, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Whether it's under a bridge or in a mansion, it's your space, it's your sanctuary, for that time, right? So yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but some of the questions that you've been getting as a professional realtor is, what about the rates? Are prices going to go down? What's your take on that, JaVon?
I mean, yes, I don't have a crystal ball, but what I can say is historically, I don't know for how long speaking, it's an election year. So rates traditionally, or historically have had a dip. Now, going back to the crystal ball, we'll go back down to the twos and threes. Uh, I don't I don't know. But with that being said, whenever I sit down with a client, whether it's a buyer or a seller, it always comes back to what's your goal. And of course, a lot of buyers, I want the best possible scenario. I want rate buy downs, and let's put together a plan. You know, when we go for me, tying into the days on market conversation that we just had, the longer a house has been sitting on the market, the more likely there are other eyes on the house. And 50 days on market, and all of a sudden you've got multiple offers on a house. That's not the situation.
Oops, you froze.
Oh, you there?
There we go.
Oh, shoot, that might have been me. What part did?
I didn't hear the last sentence.
So it's upfront and early. Let's figure out a plan that is based upon your goals, with what's going on right now. Like, yeah, rates gonna probably be a little, with conversation I have with buyers. Rates are probably not, ideal right now. But guess what? If we can get you a house and say rates do drop to where they are ideal, you're able to refinance.
There you
Um,
go.
with my sellers, I actually, the team, we right now have a couple of listings that are upcoming where we had conversations with sellers, middle of the year, last year. Oh, I'm going to wait until rates dropped. And I've had sellers call me and like, well, we missed out on an opportunity for a house that we really like because we wanted rates to drop, and it didn't happen.
That is such a good point. You can try to, again, have a crystal ball and try to chase rates
Yeah.
and this and that. But at the end of the day, when I was in new home sales, we used to, break it down to the ridiculous, actually, in corporate America as well, when I was dealing with multi-million-dollar contracts. It's like, break it down to the ridiculous. So in a home, you take, okay, so it's 10,000 more or 20,000 more, or you take the interest rate and you do it the term of the loan times whatever. And typically you're talking about a couple of Starbucks. It's not, it
Mhm.
seems like so much when you talk the big numbers, but the reality of it is it may not be affecting you, it might be affecting you minusculely. And the reality of it is, so your client has to determine, is it worth you losing this home that you think is the perfect home for
Mm-hmm.
you for this amount. Let's look at what it really means,
Yep.
to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that, some people, back to your car sales, some people, I would say many people have had, I think, negative connotations about salespeople, whether it's a car sales person, probably right up there, to other type of sales, right? But sales today is what you've been taught. It's what I've been trained with Fortune 500 companies, and that is to find out what are the needs of your
Mm-hmm.
client. And I can see how you do that so well, because sales is not pushing something onto someone. It's finding out what do they need, and marrying the best fit for them to provide a solution for them.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
I that's what you do. You have to do that. Be a great listener, as well as think outside the box, right? With the financing, or what's important to you. Like you mentioned, well, we can get you the home now, and then if rates do go down, then you can refinance. Instead of, would you be okay with losing the home? Are you okay with losing it to someone else? And really have your clients get real with what's important to them,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes they're just looking at the surface. Oh, the rate's too high, or the price is too high. Well, okay, but what does that really mean to you? And what means the most to you?
One of my favorite buyers that I worked with, veteran couple, back in December. Uh, I was fortunate enough to have got to help him, but it was weird because at closing she just looked at me. She's like, "You were the third real estate agent that we worked with," and it completely caught me off guard, because you develop a relationship with clients, and sometimes they'll tell you that up front, but I never would have thought that. And she said, "You were the only one who listened to what we were wanting," and unfortunately we did lose out on a house, but it was at that moment that she was like, "Well, JaVon, you're not in it for the commission. You're, you want to help us." And that's truly what it was. It was, a family that it's funny. Every lender that I've spoken with, the best time to buy was 5 years ago. Well, they've been renting for 15 years. And so when I sat down with, them, and I was like, "Hey, this is what your past, investments have looked like. Let's try and change that." And we were in kind of a tight budget. And I literally sat down and I was like, "Well, based off of this, like, you're not limited per se, or you shouldn't go after what you want in a house. Let's find it. It just might take some time, but let's not lose that opportunity when that house does come across." And yeah, sorry, that was just a random where you're talking about listening. Like, yeah, it's like some of the best real estate agents that I know, like, they listen more than they talk. They formulate more than they act, because then you don't have to act that much, because you've got a pretty steady plan or vision.
Absolutely, because information is power, right?
Yep.
We listen, and then we can go, okay, how can I help you achieve that? What's important to you?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, just providing what you think is going to be guessing,
Mm-hmm.
I get that from my design clients as well. One of the biggest complaints I get is that, well, my decorator came in and she really didn't listen. She just did everything that I wanted. Now, this is on the design side, not staging. Staging is marketing. But design, it's all about the client, right? Helping them have their personality show in the home. And so I'm always very careful about that. It's like, I can help you prevent making space, color, and design mistakes. But at the end of the day, my job is to help you create a space that talks about the people who live in the house,
Mm-hmm.
for that personalization. And it sounds like, and you should be very proud of that as well, that, as I tell folks, every realtor is not created equal. Every staging company is not created equal, and that's okay. That's what, find out what sets you apart, and you should be very proud of that, of your, it's great when your client gives you feedback
Mhm.
like that, wow, you're the first one out of three that really listened to me.
Yeah. I mean, on the flip side, right before COVID, I had a client, um, Mr. Smith, we were discussing about how he wanted to buy a house, and he was in the cruise industry. Now, no one knew what was going to happen
He was in the
during
what industry?
the cruise industry,
Oh,
and he actually had family that were real estate agents, and they were telling him, like, you need to get into a house now. You need to get into a house now. There were the talks. This was right before, the right before COVID, like, just blew up, and the cruise industry, like, shut down.
mm.
And I remember having the honest conversation with him, telling him that he should wait to buy. That's hard as a real estate agent.
Of course, but someone told me, I forget which industry it was in, but I was in sales. Sell as if you were selling to your mom.
Yeah. Oh man, I
Right?
wouldn't.
Right? You wouldn't tell your mom to go buy just because you needed a commission.
Yep. Yeah. And that was, luckily he also had been substitute teaching, and so he just needed to teach for a little bit longer. Like he was able to switch professions. But I remember, he bought a Roush Coleman house, and we're sitting there at close, and he looked at me and was like, waiting 7 months was the best thing ever, because now he's sitting in a house instead of having to think about having, to sell a house because he moved too quick.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's got to make you feel great.
Yeah.
So you've
I mean,
been doing this for 7 years. I'm sure by now you're starting to get referrals where people
yeah.
are, moving again, selling or buying, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So that's always good when when your business, your reputation starts to give you momentum,
Mhm.
on that. So if someone wanted to contact you, JaVon, this is, like I said, streaming on 7 sites, and you're streaming on a couple of your sites, EXP on your personal page. But if someone wanted to contact you today, what's the best way to get a hold of you to get some information on buying or selling?
Yeah. So actually, the quickest way is whatever's quickest for client or real estate agent. We're on almost, I want to say, all of the social media platforms.
Under what name?
It's going to be Aries Realty Group, or my personal name for my
You
personal
spell that how?
ARES Realty, REALTY Group. Aries is
ARES. Okay, and you see his name up here. If you're just listening, it's JaVon, JaVon Martin. You can contact him. And if you're an agent looking to, you've heard a lot about EXP and you'd like to talk to him, how many people do you have on your team now, JaVon?
So right now we have 8, and I am all about improving the realtor pool. Like, even if you're not EXP agent, or if you're not on my team, whether you're new or experienced agent, if there's a way that we can help each other become better, let's do it, because it makes life so much easier.
Absolutely. Sharing is caring, and we up level the industry
Yep.
when we share with other folks. Absolutely.
Yeah. I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for a couple of agents. Like I said, the Marconis or other agents literally offering me support, and my coach putting up with me.
Well, I'm sure that he or she is glad to put up with you, JaVon, because you're a breath of fresh air. We all know, I heard from some fellow realtor, I don't know if it was a colleague of yours, that, so many people got their licenses with thinking they're going to get rich quick. And,
Mhm.
And then I don't know if it was this year or last year, a combination of both, like hundreds of thousands of people stop being a realtor.
Exodus. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I kudos to you, because I know your job. I know you're a puzzle master, is what you are, putting all of the pieces together and ensuring that a seller or buyer has as smooth a possible transition that they can and experience throughout the process, because real estate is not for the faint of heart. I have just true, compassion and respect for realtors of your caliber who are out there, making a difference through this process. So we're right at about 45 minutes. I would happy to start on here. So much good information, JaVon. Really appreciate you. I'm going to end with a poem here. It just struck me that it would be nice to share. And here it goes. The best decisions are made. Actually, it's not a poem. I'm sorry. It's just a saying. The best decisions are made in a split second, but that second is made up of a lifetime of experience. So make that second count. JaVon has made it count. And our sign off, as usual, for 2024 is love more, give more, be more in 24. And we'll see you next week with our 100th episode of Cat's Home Chat. Make it a great weekend. Thanks for listening. Share if you like to.